Hello, everyone. We're the Carle
Bookshop
Bookshop team, and we're here today for another bookshop talk. I'm here with Hannah, Allie, and Ariel. And Allie's going to tell us a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today.
So we are here for another bookshop talk, and this is a segment we're going to be calling Dueling Books. We each picked a book for someone else in the group that we know they wouldn't normally have picked up or that they haven't read yet for various reasons, and we're going to try to convince them to read this book before the end of this video. So I will go first. I picked a book for Eliza, Frankly in Love by David Yoon. I love contemporary realistic fiction, but I know it's not Eliza's go-to. So this one is amazing. It's actually his debut novel. It was published in 2019, which is shocking. And you might recognize the name Yoon from Nicola Yoon. And if any of you have read The Sun is Also a Star and loved the movie, this is also going to be a movie soon. So this is about Frank Lee, Frank L.I. He's a Korean American kid in high school. He's in his senior year. So Frank Lee is his American name, and then his Korean name is Sung Min Lee. And the whole book, the premise is that he is caught between being American and being Korean, as he is American born and his parents were born in Korea and immigrated to the United States before he was born. And he is one of two siblings. His older sister Hannah is she was recently disowned from their family because she's dating a Black man. And so Frank is very caught between, he is really like this girl named Britt, who is white, and he is feeling like he needs to keep it a secret because he knows that it will not go over well to date outside of, say, someone who's not Korean, and also date kind of outside of the dating pool that's available to him and around his family. So most of the story is between Frank and Britt, his white girlfriend, and then his friend Joy, who's also Korean, who's part of this group of friends. They call themselves the Limbos. Every time that all their Korean families gather, they like hang out in one room and they're all friends for like that few hours. And they talk about their lives as Korean American kids. And so she's one of the Limbos, and she is dating a Chinese boy named Woo. And that's also not okay with her family. So Frank and Joy decide, without their partners knowing, that they're going to pretend date at home, and so that they can go out and then meet their real dates, Britt and Lou. So you kind of already have an idea of what's going to happen, but what you think is going to happen happens like a quarter way through. And this, first of all, the book is gorgeous. It's dyed blue and it's just so pretty. And then you kind of have more expectations, and then that happens in the half of the book. And then a big family secret is revealed around halfway through the book that Frank then has to deal with. I think my favorite part was the characters. Everyone is so well fleshed out and funny and fun to be around. I had listened to it on audiobook, and I didn't do anything else for a couple days other than listen to it. Okay, Eliza, what can I do to convince you to read this book?
Well, it does sound pretty good, but I guess the reason that I tend to shy away from contemporary realistic YA is because so many times they deal with like violence or humiliation or abuse or bullying, and I know that's really critical to like the teen genre because teens are kind of exploring their own personal power and navigating the world of power, but I'm like a very highly empathetic person, and so it's sometimes really hard to get through books that are too heavy. So I just wanted to see, does this book deal with those topics, and if they do, I guess, does it feel like purposeful and meaningful?
Yes. So the most of the book is Frank digesting and dealing with issues of class, racism, xenophobia, and a whole list of things. And I think it's done necessarily rather than a book where it's just kind of like about sadness or it's a book about abuse. But Frank is at a point in his life in high school where they're approaching college. They're kind of all applying for colleges. The first half of the book, and then the second half is them all learning whether they're going and where they're going. And so he's at a point in his life where he thinks he knows what he wants and who he is, especially since he talks a lot in the book about that he knows what's better. He knows it's better to be American first and Korean second because it's so much easier. I think is one of the things he said, it would be easier to be American first, to be recognized as American first, but he knows that he's not. And then he's going through all these things with his friends, with Britt and with Joy, and with the limbos, that he's realizing that I don't know everything that I want. And that's confusing. And then it's very Shakespearean, all the shenanigans that he gets himself into. I think the second, I think it's necessary. And then I think the way that it's fun to read is that it's so dialogue heavy, and David Yoon is so good at dialogue that you are really with Frank every step of the way, that you don't feel like you're getting lost, or that you understand what's happening, and it's all for a reason, and you're knowing what he's feeling and he's processing it at the same time as you. And then the third reason that it's still great is he has a really strong support system, which is something that's very unique to this book. He's not a character that when he's going through these emotional things that he's left by himself, or that he's alone in his room listening to sad music and he has nobody. He always has either his best friend Q, he has the limbos, he has Joy, who's one of his best friends, he has his parents. So it's never tragic, ever.
Okay, well, you've almost convinced me. I guess my last thing would be, when I think of especially kind of like YA romance, they all seem very similar to each other. So I was kind of wondering what makes this like really stick out as like, I won't read this anywhere else.
I think the biggest reason is that it is the known voices text. David Yoon is Korean American. He grew up in Southern California, just like Frank Lee. So all of the things that he's talking about, from the food to the emotions to the friends, are things that he himself grew up with. So that's something you're not going to get from any other book. I think the main reason that it stuck out for me that I was reading it is I usually don't gravitate towards stories where it's a male narrator. And he's such an emotional character, and he's very tuned with his own emotions and emotionally intelligent, and he wants to be happy and he wants to make other people happy. And he's always asking himself questions about how to be a better person and how to love people better. This is my first book, first own voices text reading about a Korean American person, and a very unique book where the main character is a very emotional male character. So that was what stuck out for me.
All right, well, you convinced me. I will definitely read it.
Excellent.
All right. I'm going to convince Ariel to read a middle grade book. And basically, Ariel and I have worked together for maybe 8 years. And I don't know if she's ever read a recommendation of mine. She's very fixed in her reading style. And so I take this as the ultimate challenge. I'm going to convince Ariel to read anything that she didn't pick herself. But I'm going to do that with The Parker Inheritance by Varian Johnson. I think Ariel is going to love this book. I definitely think she should give it a shot. It's a middle grade book. Okay, so Candace and her mom, they moved to mom's hometown of Lambert, South Carolina. And Candace meets a neighborhood boy. His name is Brandon, and they love reading. They're very literary. They share like the same love of books, word puzzles and puns. And so those skills come in handy because they have to solve a mystery together. And so that's the part I think Ariel's going to really like, all the references to other like books and word puzzles. And then so she uncovers this letter from her late grandmother. And her grandmother had left the town after being fired from her job as the first Black city manager of the town of Lambert. And there was a note with the letter that says, "Find the path, solve the puzzle." And in the letter, Candace discovers this mystery that's very much like The Weston Game by Ellen Raskin. In fact, there's like homage and references to The Weston Game throughout, which I know Ariel will love because she's read that book and she will get it. I've created a puzzle mystery that will take you deep into the city's past. The first person who finds this inheritance will receive 1/10 of the money. The remainder will be allocated to the city. In return, the winner must share what he or she learns through the puzzle with the world. And so the mystery is actually really important, and involves uncovering injustice and racism and sexism in the town's history. And Candace is learning about her own family and how she, as a kid, can make this right again. And I think this is still like elements that we're still struggling with in this country. And although the book has like heavy topics, they're woven in so masterfully. There's like a lightness and warmth to the book. It's very fast paced, and the characters are very smart and they're good at puzzles. And so there's a lot of wordplay and puns and literary references since the characters are so well read. And so you're figuring out the mystery along with the characters. Oh, and there's sports. I know you love sports. So, Ariel, do you think you might give it a try?
I would love to. I'm a little worried, as I am with most books. I'm always worried that they're going to do what I do when I talk, which is, even though it can be clever, sometimes I can be a bit condescending and I ramble and I over explain what I'm trying to say. Do you feel that this book does that? Is there a lot of filler information that just is there and never gets called back to?
No, I think this book is so wonderfully crafted that it's not like fillers or like, oh, that character never came into play. It's really well put in throughout the whole story. It's a lot of historical information. In fact, there's an author's note at the end where he goes into all of the real people that he included versus what he made up, which is really interesting. And there's more info on his blog. But this one, the paperback version that we had, when I was rereading it, I was looking. It's really cool how it has like different colored papers for the ending, the afterword, but there's like flashbacks within the book, and they coded the colored papers, so you like slightly different color when you're reading the flashback portion. I think it was really clever and well done.
It's almost like in a movie when the flashbacks are in a sepia or a cooler tone.
Yeah, and it does like the normal book thing where it does say the date, so you know that it's a flashback. But I just thought that was extra like good book design.
It does sound really good. It actually sounds like I'm a lot like Candace. Probably around the same age, 11 or 12. My family moved to my mom's hometown, and I was always the kid that would bring a book to a party. And if we're at school dance, I'm reading the book. I'm there because that's what I'm supposed to do, but don't interrupt me. I don't want to dance. I want to read. And so I feel like Candace, you said, was a reader, moved to her mom's hometown, likes puns. I love puns. Wordplay is my jam. I don't know. I really, really like middle grade mysteries. You mentioned the Westing game. Do you read other middle grade novels, and how does this stack up to that?
Yes. I see, this was the hard part of actually narrowing it down because there were so many good mysteries that I thought I could recommend to you. I was also thinking of The Green Glass House. I don't know if you've read that, Kate Milford. That's like my favorite. I just happen to have it here, but it is so good. Another great literary mystery. This one's kind of like ghosty mystery. Then I would feel very similar vibes to Escape from Mr. Limoncello's Library by Chris Gravenstein. The Book Scavenger by Jennifer Chambliss Bertram. Also, The Wollstonecraft Detective Agency. That one is also a really great one. There's like a lot of that wordplay that I think is in the Escape from Mr. Limoncello's Library and The Book Scavenger. Those are like the booky parts that I feel like you'll get in the Parker Inheritance. And so I love that, the wordplay, the puzzle, the references to books. That's like, just throw in like a beautiful library and I'm hooked. Those are all my keywords. But then I love the mystery and the characters. So I think if you like any of those books, those are all books I love. I could go on. I love middle grade mystery. So I hope you give it a chance.
It sounds really good. It sounds like it's perfect, right up my alley. Not sure why I haven't read it before. I'll have to take it home. Yeah.
Our next video will just be Eliza showing us all of her favorite books.
I would like Hannah to consider reading Drama by Raina Telgemeier. The drama in this story plays out in two ways for the main character, Callie, a 7th grader who's struggling with her feelings for various crushes throughout the semesters, as well as making her set design for the middle school musical go off with a bang. And I mean that literally. She wants to build an actual cannon and fire it on stage.
Okay, so my first question for you, Ariel, I was going to talk about how, like Eliza, I also don't usually read contemporary or realistic fiction because, first of all, I'm not excited, and second of all, I usually don't feel that I can relate to the characters, strangely enough. So I was going to ask you, what about this book would I be able to relate to for the characters? And you just pinpointed it for me. Scenic design, that's my thing. So
So I'm done,
Al-
you're saying. I can
yeah,
just
already halfway there. Okay, go on.
I would love to say that her set design goes off 100% the way that she planned, but with all things, it doesn't. So she struggles with the pyrotechnics aspect, the workaround they have to use, timing, which I'm sure you had to face when you were building things, where you have a time frame and then things get pushed and they get shoved. All of that comes into play, and all of this on-stage drama comes up with not just with her set pieces, but with the actors in the show and their relationships. And then you sort of get the not quite behind the scenes, but the side quest for Callie is all of these crushes she's discovering. Her friend's older brother, the new kid who happens to be gay. Well, what about his brother? His brother's super cute. And it turns out maybe his brother doesn't like her either. And maybe he likes someone else. And maybe that person likes someone else. And it's this whole rigmarole of who likes who and will the canon actually go off when it needs to.
Okay.
I love the storytelling of this. I feel like when you read this, it's definitely like a slice of life novel. You are just getting one semester in Callie's life, but you can also read it as a script for a play. There's romance, there's drama, there's comedy, a cast of diverse characters between genders and skin tone and sexuality. And I really, really like that. I picked this one specifically because I know that you like musical theater. And it was a graphic novel, which I think you said you don't read too much. Definitely contemporary. There's use of cell phones and text messaging throughout, which growing up, I would say for me and maybe Eliza, not a thing that we had in middle school. So I feel like that would be something you or Allie could definitely relate to, at least seeing it if you yourself didn't do it. Um, but mainly I thought Hannah likes musicals, Hannah's singing. This character loves musicals and is just so invested in Broadway shows. And I'm like, that's Hannah. This book is Hannah. We could just insert you right in there.
Yeah, replace the cannon with a squid, and that was basically my college career.
What do you think? You want to give it a try?
I think so. I think I have one more question.
Okay.
And yeah, like you said, I'm new to the whole graphic novel genre, mostly because I think, first of all, I enjoy text heavy books. I also had that notion growing up that graphic novels weren't literary, whatever that means. So I guess obviously my opinion has changed since working at the Picture Book Museum. Like, gotta challenge that belief for myself. So, what do you think about this title will challenge my opinions about the importance and the usefulness of the graphic novel genre?
Okay. I definitely like that you used your air quotes for literary. And I think that is a great thing to do with any book, especially this day and age, because literary has such a traditional definition for how we think of books, where we celebrate them for their prose and their poetry and their use of metaphor and messages that inspire us or encourage us to appreciate what we have based on what the characters don't have, or inspire us to make changes, which is well and good, but it doesn't always rely so much on image heavy things. It's all about the words in books like that when we think of literary. But with graphic novels, the graphic comes first. The artwork is the star, and the text is the supporting character in this case. And I really like that Raina Telgemeier makes this book and graphic novels a production. And I mean that literally. You get a ticket stub for your book. You have an overture for the story.
Okay, I did not realize how when I see this book on the shelf, I just thought it was like another romance thing. I didn't know it was literally a production because that's so oh my God, this is graphic novels are design driven performance. If you don't know what that is, you can Google it and you will love it.
It's definitely all the things. It's a romance, and you can roll your eyes because middle school romance, been there, done that. But it's definitely like it's a whole show. We even get our scene setting before we even get our first word of dialogue. We have acts to tell us where we are in the story. And we have an intermission where a page flip doesn't end the intermission. You're in the lobby and you see the cast and crew moving things about. The music swells, you flip the page, and we return to the story.
Okay. I kind of love this. I really do.
A book like this is a perfect sort of starter graphic novel where you actually get to feel what graphic novels are all about. The storytelling is pictures first, text to support, and the whole thing is a production to consume where you feel all the emotions that you can with your eyes and then your heart and then your brain just like the canon, which may or may not go off.
Full circle. Oh my gosh, you've 100% convinced me. This is amazing. I can't believe I haven't read this yet. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for telling me about this, for not letting me just write it off as a dumb romance. I'm very excited to try it out. Okay, I think it's my turn now, isn't it? Yeah, so I am going to be convincing Allie to read a big, beautiful series book. How do you think that sounds, Allie?
I get bored very easily. I find it very hard to sit still for long periods of time. So I genuinely, if I find out a book is part of a series, unless I've read it, the first one by accident, I genuinely like don't pick it up at all. So you have your work cut out for you.
Well, I do like a challenge. So my pick for you was the Mysterious Benedict Society by Trenton Lee Stewart. This is for fans of Series of Unfortunate Events or Phantom Tollbooth. Ooh, I don't like your face right now.
2 for 2. No, I was like, oh, okay, that's me. That's me.
Okay, great. Doing good so far. So the series starts with this kid, Rainey, finding an ad in the newspaper asking, "Are you a gifted child looking for special opportunities?" Because that's how every middle grade book needs to start. And so all of it invites any interested kid to come and take this very normal seeming standardized test, like it's literally an SAT kind of situation. And of course, the second they get into the space, they realize that it's not so much a test as a series of brain puzzles that are not child safe. And the 4 most creative and resourceful kids in the group are the ones that make it to the end. So right off the bat, the story introduces this group of kids with these wildly different skill sets and abilities, and rejects this idea of like conventionally smart kids. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't very good in school when I was that age. And I was like diagnosed with ADHD early on. And so I developed a like really negative perception of my learning abilities, even though I was a voracious reader and loved learning new things. And I know you and I have talked about having this in common, Allie. So seeing these characters that are creative and weird and know that they're smart. Oh my gosh. I loved this book so much because I saw myself so much in it. And I also liked that it was so thick and it works well as a standalone novel. It wraps up in the first book itself, but then they also then go on like 5 more adventures, and I'm pretty sure he's still writing more. So you can read the series, but you also don't have to.
That was one of my questions was, do you think, because I know you've read multiple books in the series, do you think that I would be losing out if I didn't read the whole series?
I would say they're all just as good, but you don't lose anything by just reading the first one. Yeah, they wrap it up at the end. There's a whole, everyone gets their comeuppance and their just desserts, and everyone's happy. So you can read it by yourself, but they also go on more adventures and solve more mysteries. So if you're into that, you can do it.
Okay, my other question for you that you kind of brought up already. I've read the back of the book, but I've never opened the book. And it was saying like the gifted children. And me being a neurodivergent person, my immediate thought is like, oh, that's not me. Why would I read that? Because that's clearly like not directed towards me. But it sounds like it's kind of the conversations you've had with me about like the Percy Jackson series, where neurodivergence isn't the weakness, it's the strength. And those who are neurodivergent are naturally able to solve puzzles and the things you're talking about now with this book. You feel, I guess I have like a two-part question. My question originally was, do you think that these kids have like an inherent privilege that I as a reader maybe wouldn't be able to relate to because they're like gifted? Mm-hmm. And the other question, I'm not sure how to merge these, but you probably know the answer. Do you think it would be easy for a reader like me and you to like say like, oh, these kids are definitely like neurodivergent, they're definitely like you could definitely read them as this and it would be like your headcanon, it would be great? Or do you think that they're more coded that way than anything? Like, would you recommend, if someone came in the shop and said, my neurodivergent kid is looking for representation, is this like a book that you would recommend to them?
It is a book I would recommend to them, but I am glad that you brought that up because it is coded. It doesn't,
Okay.
They don't come out and say that these kids have X, Y, or Z, but it's very much implied. It's also exists in that world that like, it's like very anachronistic. Like you don't really know what time or place it's taking. You know that it's like somewhat modern because they have tools and such, but it's very, it feels very isolated from what I see as like the real world. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
there's a freedom to project on to this whatever you need it to be. Cool.
Which I really like. And it has different, like all of these different characters. So there's the 4 kids, there's Rainy, Sticky, Kate, and Constance. And Rainy is just like your average dude, but like smart and good at games and good at thinking. And then Sticky is this skinny, nerdy type, remembers anything that he's ever read. That's his thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like you can pick together what that is. And then Kate, who was my favorite character when I read this. Eliza, I see you smiling. Did you also like Kate?
No, I'm a huge Constance stan.
Yes, Constance. Okay, Constance and Kate are the best. They carry the story. They really do. Kate is also the series is illustrated by Carson Ellis.
I was gonna ask if it was because it's very Ellis-esque. Yeah.
So this is Kate. So this chick walks around with a bucket of tools on her hip, and just like whenever something goes wrong, she's like, what do I have here that we can use to fix this? Ooh, a rope. Ooh, a knife. This is what I mean, like not child safe. Like these are not things that children should have, but there are no adults around. What's that? And then Constance is younger than all of them, and she knows herself. She doesn't mind that she can be a little mean sometimes because she gets it done. She is not afraid to go up to like the biggest, scariest person in the room and call them out and tell them what is.
Nice.
That's Constance. That's Constance. And she's
okay. Well, I feel like that character description sold me right there.
Yeah, and she's portrayed as like 5 years old or something. So it's really
very Sunny Baudelaire, very like ahead.
So Sunny. Yeah. I totally related to Kate because you definitely see her having, and possibly Constance having ADD and still be, like expressing themselves and being being themselves. I honestly cannot believe that you haven't read this yet. I've told both Eliza and Ariel. Both of you guys have read it, right? Yep.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Ariel, you would really like it.
This is proof of what
It's
we were talking
full
about.
of puzzles.
I love this series so much. This was my childhood because it taught me that it's okay that I'm a girl and I like building things. That was very formational for me. And it's okay if I can't do standardized tests. This was like the first book that was like, it's okay. You don't need that negativity in your life.
Highly relatable.
And it has very much those vibes that's, I don't know, similar to that like heist crew, which I love in books, where it's just we each got our own skill. When we work together, we get the job done. It's really good.
So
And it's a
good.
really good read aloud too.
Mhm.
The brains,
I
the
read it out
brawn,
loud
the
to my
person that
nephew.
sneaks in.
The girl is the brawn. She and Constance walk in, they're like, okay, we're gonna fight someone.
Okay, I mean,
Constance
I'm
is so
sold.
fun.
I'm 100% sold. I'm excited. I'm actually excited to read it, which is also, this is an accomplishment.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Guys, we're killing it.
I'd like to thank you all for joining us today for our bookshop talk of Dueling Books. Just to let you know, all of the books we discussed today are available in the bookshop. You can order online or by phone. You can also order online and phone anything you'd like from our shop. We're open for curbside pickup and online orders. Please join us if you'd like a recommendation for books, or to discuss books, or discuss recommendations for books that you'd like to convince somebody to read. Give us a call or an email and we'll be sure to get back to you as soon as we can. Bye.
Bye guys. See you soon.